how would you tell a universe that does contain unreal things and a universe that doesn't contain unreal things apart, immaterial things? How do you tell a universe that contains immaterial numbers from a universe that doesn't contain immaterial numbers? If I plot you down in one, could you tell the difference?
I didn't say that numbers are material. That's the wonder.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that how do you tell those two types of universe apart? What test? What criteria?
I don't believe in unreal
perception?
universes. I only believe in real universes.
So let's say hypothetically that a universe existed where nothing that wasn't real existed. All right?
Well, that's completely irrelevant and uninteresting. Utterly uninteresting.
Material. Let's say something where nothing immaterial exists. It's a universe of rocks. How the heck do you tell that apart from the one we live in?
I don't know. I never thought of it. And why would I answer the question? What's the point?
Well, let's go back to the original question, which was 1 second, Concordance. Let's not get too far off track. Let's get back to the original question, which was why is your religion, or how would you argue to Concordance and myself that you've got it right and a Muslim doesn't?
Well, that's the easy case. I mean, compare the Bible, look at the timeline at the same time. Compare it, look at the copy-paste and all the errors there. You have proofs of copy-paste and all kinds of... I don't want to offend them, but please, that's the simple one. The difficult one is the one we're left with. The Bible is there. And we would have to do just like you would have to defend your faith. Or assumption. Let's skip the word faith then. Your assumption about reality. Can it be that from absolutely nothing, by means of absolutely nothing, caused by absolutely nothing, we could become, humans from pond scum? Well, let's compare now. In my view, God created, He existed. He's non-material. He's not part of the universe. And He created the universe. It's ordered. It's full of order. We analyze it today, and, well, it's full of order. It's full of logic. Could it be that it takes logic to arrange something in this way? Well, that's logic to think. It's logic to think, but at some point, we don't get any further. We get one step outside the universe. We look at the typicalities of the universe. The cause should have something, there should be something in the cause of the universe that is reflected in the universe, in the cause. So that's a logical, rational reason to assume a creator with some expected properties, being logic, things like that. Personalities is the most complex thing that exists in the universe. Well, he must at least be a personality himself. Because of the simple observation that nothing which is ordered and complex causes more ordered and complex outcome. It's only the other way around. So by logic, following the logic all the way back to one step outside of the universe, we have a cause to the universe. It's reasonable, it's rational to believe that there is a cause. Now, the question is that an unpersonal force? No, not because it exists persons, I think it is a person. Now someone else might believe something else. But there we must stop, because then we are outside of time and space. Any question from inside time and space would have no meaning outside time and space. That's not trying to get away with it. It's only
I fully accept that, and I appreciate that you do not seek to do something like William Lane Craig does by taking that argument and extending it to the Christian God. But that doesn't help you, because you still haven't answered the question, which was, why is it the Christian God and not another God? Why have you got it right? And it seems to me that at the moment all you're relying on is the accuracy of the Bible. And there are 2 points in relation to the accuracy of the Bible which I do think you're going to struggle over. The first, it comes from Leviticus 10, where it sorry, I may be wrong, 11:6. Have I got it right? 11:6. The rabbit chews its cud. Now, that's obviously inaccurate. It may seem trivial, but there's another one I can give you as well, the nativity account, which is described, I think, only in Luke and only in Matthew. And they are 2 totally different stories. They cannot, however hard you try, however apologetic you may be, they cannot be reconciled. Now, this to me is like a clock ticking away all the day. You think it's absolutely fine, and then suddenly it strikes 13, and you think, hang on, there's something wrong here. And because of that, you've got to then start questioning the accuracy of everything else in the Bible. And as I say, your starting point, as Concordance has pointed out, seems to be to accept the Bible as true and then go looking to evidence to support it. And you,
that's a good approach, and I still cling to that. And we should both do that. We should continue that. But now, you again, the question was loaded here. The dice was loaded because, first of all, the rabbit. I don't have the answer now. I have read about it. You can look it up at creation.com. The answer is there. Don't assume what you read in translation. That's a usual trap. Anyway, the next one, it's more complicated, but it's true.
This is the King James Version of the Bible. Are you telling me that there is a better translation that does not include that passage?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
So what's your point then? It's a completely fallacious point.
No, what it says. No, you need to look what it actually says. The source text. That's what I was.
I've just asked what it says. You said there is no other version of the Bible that does not say exactly what I've just read out.
In English, well, no, please. You can look it up. I wanted to address the second question, which is trickier. Actually, it's actually trickier. The first one is. The problem was known at the time.
At what time?
Well, yeah, you assume a problem, and people at the time when it was written did not assume a problem. Why?
When was it written?
Before year 70.
Yes, I'll give you that, just.
Yeah, because they didn't mention the biggest event in Israel's history, the destruction of Jerusalem. Okay, now... no one thought it was a problem. And the question is, why? No one at the time. Today, we think it's a problem, yes. I give you, I accept you bringing up the question. It looks strange. But at the time, they didn't think it was strange. Why?
You tell me.
And the questions are, yes. Well, I don't have them, very simple here. First of all, both Joseph and Mary were from the king line of David.
Do you want me to highlight another absolute classic error in the Bible? There are 2 lineages given, and they are just incompatible. Why do you think that is? Maybe that didn't matter at the time. Yes.
Well, there are there are other examples of how you're rational when you write things. For example, who from the line were kings? Okay, all mentioned in the king line from Judah were kings, whereas in the other lines, not all were kings. So you have different. You have a purpose when saying something. We are talking about Jesus, the King of the Jews. Well, it was important to show the royal line. It's called the royal line, okay? So that's one reason. And then the other one was of Judah. He was to be of Judah, of Esau's root and branch. So then it doesn't really matter who were kings, okay?
Yeah. But he wasn't descended in any way from... But a question, Samuel, you have some training in genetics.
Exactly, he was not...
Where did the Y chromosome come from? What was it from Joseph? Was it from God? What the old joke is Jesus haploid Christ. He had an earthly mother and a magical father. So he didn't inherit any genetic material from Joseph. He inherited it from a magical being up in the sky.
Well, please, I think the question was addressed to Samuel, who again has been patiently listening.
The point, it's beside the point if he got anything from Joseph.
Can you allow Samuel to answer the question, Rolf,
okay.
Please?
Thank you.
Samuel.
Yeah, so the question is,
if Jesus had an earthly mother, and that's certainly one X chromosome, where the heck did the Y chromosome come from?
Where did chromosome comes from in the first place? That's not
my question is, if he didn't have an earthly father, it was an immaculate conception, he had to have had a Y chromosome. Mary didn't have any Y chromosomes unless she was some sort of a bizarre, unusual aneuploidy event. So where did that Y chromosome come from?
It says.
Well, we're talking about the immaculate conception of your Savior.
Well, evolution
doesn't bother you as a geneticist a little bit?
No,
I'm asking Samuel, Rolf, okay?
Well, evolutionists believe in a lot of very unlikely events.
Subjects. Focus on this problem. What's going on? Where the Y chromosome come from?
I am.
Is it
evolutionists believe in a lot of unlikely events, and the Christian has a rationale for believing in some events to happen that seems unlikely to us, but is not unlikely if there is someone making it up to happen. So, I mean, I believe certain miracles have happened, and I don't see a problem there if you look at how the Bible describes God.
So your answer, in short, is it was a miracle. Okay, that's fine.
No. Adam and Eve was created from
Jesus. Would he show the lineage of his non-father Joseph? Do you understand what I'm saying? His genetic markers. If we did a paternity test, we did our CSI Jerusalem, right? Are we going to see Joseph's markers? Well, then he's not descended from these people that know the prophecies.
Please. The cultural line.
I was asking Samuel.
It's independent of genetics.
I'm sorry. I'm going to insist. You've had a great opportunity during the course of the show. I know you'll have plenty more opportunity, but this was directed at Samuel. So please, can we hear from Samuel? Do you understand the point that Concordance is making?
Yeah. But I'm asking, how do we know that this matters? I mean, how we.
Well, your father has just said it's important that the Bible explain the lineage of the King of the Jews, and Concordance is saying that because the Y chromosome came from the Holy Ghost coming upon Mary, that the Y chromosome would have not been from that lineage.
Is that the assumption in the Bible? No,
Rolf,
you're
will
making
you please
up
allow
a problem.
Samuel to answer the question?
Yeah, but I mean, basically, that is my question as well. What is the assumption in the Bible? I mean, that is what you have to see. Is it consistent or not? You cannot impose your own explanation for how things should happen.
Samuel, nature is a very strict accountant. You know that if you've got a training in science, if you work in this field, nature does not allow for the creation magically of things. It does not suspend the rules arbitrarily. There are causes and there's a strict record keeping being made of everything. All right. So the creation of new genetic material is, yes, a miracle, right? Oh, man.
Yeah, but for example,
but it doesn't fulfill these prophecies that are so important to this Old Testament prophecies.
Have you proven with repeatable science that miracles cannot happen?
That's not the question, Samuel.
No,
but the question is, why is the lineage, as depicted in the Bible, so important if that line is broken anyway by the fact that Jesus' father, was not Joseph?
Well, it was obvious to all that he was not his biological father. So the point is not genealogy. Is that so difficult to understand? The claim is he's culturally and historically descendant of Judah through the king line from his mother's, and you can depict it in two ways through Mary.
His father was the Holy
like
Spirit.
Joseph. It's irrelevant.
All right, it's irrelevant. Let's move on to our next caller. Welcome to the show, Oliver.
Yeah.
Hi. I'd just like to say I was not El Nino, as
Oh, okay.
I
just assumed every troll is you, Oliver.
And nor did I send him, as DPR thought I did. Anyway, so I used to be a Christian, and initially I was very, very fearful of hell, eternal damnation, and eternal burning. Various verses saying there's wailing and constant gnashing of teeth, and then there was where the fires never burn. Sorry, where the fires never stop burning. But and then I was thinking, but some of these verses say the fires don't stop burning, but it doesn't say anything about your soul that doesn't stop burning. And then I was introduced to some Jehovah's Witnesses, and I did some Bible studies with them, and they pointed out some verses which indicated that there's going to be like a rejuvenation of the world, and in fact you cannot have a consciousness. There is no sort of soul that's independent from the brain. You need to have a brain to be conscious, and once God revives your brain, you'll be living in the new world. So there's really sort of no afterlife and no hell. So with all this in mind, I was just wondering what your opinion was. I'm assuming you're well versed in the Bible of what happens when we die.
Well, first of all, Jehovah's Witness, they must defend their own beliefs. They are not founded in the Bible regarding the things that you mentioned. So it sounds a little bit odd to me, actually, because I start from the claims of the Bible, try to defend them, try to see if there is reason to believe. Okay, so if you could rephrase your question, which is based in the Bible, claim at least that it's based in the Bible, then I would answer.
I appreciate your honesty in answering. Whether you appreciate it or not, Rolf, what you just said was that my starting point is the Bible, which is the point that Concordance and I have been making throughout the whole show. Yeah. Thank you for accepting that is the case.
Yeah, but look, today I am very careful in starting from the Bible. Earlier you asked about, what I had thoughts before and this and that. Okay, yeah, I want to start from the Bible and look, can it be true? Well, that's a very scientific way of seeing.
Oliver.
I mean, I guess that's the way you look at the world. You have your assumption, axioms and things, and then you try to examine, can it be so? Okay? So that's what we're doing.
I fully accept that I make assumptions. Yep. And I think Concordance would do so as well.
Oliver,
and I make general assumptions, such as when I wake up in the morning, the law of gravity is going to be the same. I don't stick my foot out of the side of the bed and check that it's sort of like going to go downwards and the floor's going to be there. There are basic assumptions that I make, but I think they're justified. I make an assumption that the sun will rise, or as you say, the earth will rotate. That's a valid assumption, I think. Given the evidence,
honestly, DPR, if I wake up in the morning,
take from that. But what I do not accept is that you can pick up a book written 400 years ago from a multitude of different authors, and your starting point is, this book is true. Let me go out and find evidence to support my belief. Because that's all it is. It's a belief that this book is true.
And I can't accept that you start from absolutely nothing. True means of nothing because of nothing. So that's not very much better. But Oliver, I think I'm lost your question there, because if it were too much based on Jehovah's Witnesses,
I was asking what you thought about faith. I'll just add that I can't remember the verses, but because everything the Jehovah's Witnesses teach is not found in the Bible. During the Bible studies, I recall reading various allusions to the prophecies in Jeremiah and Ezekiel about how there'll be a new world and everything will be better and the animals will be harmonious with each other. And I can remember one of the Gospels saying...
Can I break in and then you continue asking questions? First of all, I don't believe in rejuvenation of the world because the Bible doesn't teach anything such. It says he's going to create everything new. Okay, it is a distinction because this world is doomed according to the Word of God. Okay, so yeah, so that's not Christian belief to believe in rejuvenation. But recreation, yes. Okay.
Fine.
One.
And there was a verse in the Gospel saying that you actually need your brain to be conscious. If you have no brain, it's like not existing.
I think it's very interesting. I don't understand the question there, but it talks about psyche.
Disagreement.
More exactly.
Like I said, I can't quote you verses, but I can just tell you that during these Bible studies, I do remember reading this. So in my mind, it's like the Bible does preach this sentiment. Yeah. Anyway,
I just disproved that statement. If I can give you a link here, if you go to realpedia.org and look at psyche, spell psyche, and the Bible, then you will see all the New Testament verses talking about the mind. Look, in English, it's the mind. You say brain. It doesn't say brain. It says psyche. And it talks about man's psyche, how he is going to redeem your psyche, how he's going to heal your psyche, strengthen your psyche, and it talks about his own psyche, God's psyche, the Father's psyche, who is spirit, who is not matter. So the answer to your question is, psyche exists with or without matter. Now, we are constrained to this three-dimensional time-room world with matter, but that doesn't mean that the Bible claims an existing consciousness without matter, but God has chosen to put everything in form. It has form. Well, that's what we see, and that's the Bible's claim.
Can I just pick up on one point, Rolf, which I'm not sure we clarified. Do you believe that a physical hell exists, which those that God does not choose to take to physical heaven will spend eternity in?
That's a very good question. I haven't thought much about it through the years, but recently that question has come up. It's very much debated in Sweden. I believe that so far I have looked into it. You know, Jesus makes the strongest statements about fire, lakes of fire, blah, 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 blah. And looking through the Bible, consistent usage of this figure of speech, which I claim it is, first of all, that doesn't exclude a physical. I'm saying, first of all, he's talking figurative speech. The description of deep anxiety and regret, you know, the worm which never stops, what do you say, crawling, or, yeah, you know, the anger, the regret, oh, I knew but I didn't, you know, things like that. Pictorial language, figurative speech, that is anxiety. The deepest form is fire, you know, with a smoke in your nose. I have had experienced anxiety, so yeah, I know this language. Most people actually know about this language. It's good metaphor.
It was a very straightforward question, and you yet again have shown a remarkable ability not to answer a straightforward question. Do you believe in the literal hell? Yes or no?
Yeah. First, we need to know what does the Bible actually claim, because I don't believe something that it doesn't claim. Okay, so now, will there be a material hell?
Yes or no?
I don't know.
You don't know? Why was your God such a poor communicator? Why couldn't he have put in this book, hell does exist?
I think it exists, yes.
You do think it exists?
I think, well, it was created for, as it says, but what is it? What does it look like? Does it smell? Is it physical fire? Or is it just the experience, awareness of this pain? Well, that's the important part. Okay, so that's what is communicated and what makes a difference. Now, is it physical? Is it this and that? I don't know. If it doesn't say, I don't know for sure. Perhaps you can know, and I'm just too ignorant, so I need to catch up on that one. That's what I'm saying. But he sure is talking about conscious, you know, have you been working actively in the courtrooms as a lawyer? Someone gets his sentence, and then he realizes that this is not going to change. now you have reached the moment of truth. Oh well, you can imagine the feeling if you have a bad record. Okay, so that's what Jesus
that is a very shabby analogy, and I'll tell you for why. Everyone that grows up after they've reached a certain age and education appreciates there are such things as laws and such things as prisons, and if they break the laws, they could end up in prison. That is pretty well known by most people, unless they're complete lunatics. But the existence of a hell is not necessarily known.
Okay, but you start from Dante's hell. I know that because we all
I'm not starting from any position of hell. I'm asking you whether you think hell exists. I do not. So don't tell me I'm starting from that position.
I believe that it exists. Yes, but
you
the form, the smell, the implementation, I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
What? Who gets
Why should I know something that I
can see? Tortured?
What? Excuse me?
You're saying you don't know how it's implemented, by which I presume you're saying you don't know who gets sent there or for what reason, or
yes, I know exactly
of the torture which they suffer. But in general terms, hell exists, it's for bad people, and it's not a
now
nice
you're
place.
Mixing up things.
Well, you tell me. I'm trying to get an answer from you, Rolf.
No, the reasons are spelled out, but what will it be like? Well, I don't know.
Okay, I tried.
It's not told. I cannot know.
Let's go back to the science. Can we talk science again?
Yeah, sure. I'll remove Oliver because we've now, as usual, got a load of people who want to join us. Thank you very much, Oliver.
I heard something very interesting, Rolf, about from the rationalizer, about something to do with lead and uranium, and I want to hear more about that. That the transition between the two, it's not a one-way process. That you can actually reverse it and go from lead back to uranium? Here comes the rationalizer.
Hi.
I'll probably shake him. Oh, here he is.
Here it is. Okay. Tell us more, rationalizer.
If you're talking, we can't hear you, Rash.
Yeah, you're silent, rationalizer.
I need to... yeah.
There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
You're a little quiet, but we're kind of getting that.
Right.
I need to say one thing here because I forgot to say it in due time. We need to be very careful about identities here. Not about me, not about Samuel, but about everyone else. Just so everyone knows, okay? Fine.
Right. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, I can see you.
No, I wasn't saying that Rolf is able to turn lead into uranium, because, you know, he could go work for the Iranians, couldn't he, if he could do that? No, what I was saying is it's about the process of uranium turning into lead. Now, based on the half-lives of uranium turning into lead, this seems to take an extremely long time. So... why is it that when we date stuff using the transition of uranium into lead, it gives us a certain date that's much longer than the 10,000 years of the universe?
And it's self-calibrating because there are multiple isotopes of lead formed.
Yeah, I have another question that answers your question. Mm-hmm. I can give you the names later. They took a sample from the bedrock in Bruce Canyon in Grand Canyon. It's a special place. You know, you can see from the Colorado River flowing on the bedrock.
Was it uranium? Was it uranium?
It was several methods.
But was it uranium?
Yes, I think so.
So there was someone took some uranium.
But there is also a process involved, not only the materials. You have different radiometric methods. Yeah. Taking samples from 3 layers, we know in which one should be oldest, in the middle, and newest, because there were lava on top. 3 layers. And they were all mixed up when the ages came from the lab. Why? Okay? There were several methods, including isochrone.
It only happens in non-disturbed layers. You can get disturbed layers. You can get stuff tilted over, knocked upside down, mixed up. It's only when you've got clear separated sedimentary layers that you're going to get them in a chronological order. You can't go somewhere where something's effectively been through a natural blender and then expect everything to be in the right order. But my question is based on how long it takes uranium to turn to lead, why has so much uranium changed to lead?
Well, do you know the starting amount of lead?
Well, the thing is with the starting amount of uranium is that when you radiometrically date a certain item, there are different isotopes in there that degrade to other isotopes, and those will also corroborate the same age.
Would they?
Well,
the daughter molecules that are made have different. They have different stabilities.
If you're looking at if you pick up a rock that is an aggregate of different rocks smashed together from different sedimentary layers, it will be 10,000 years old and 10 million years old.
Yeah.
But if you take an individual sample of a rock, which is completely from the same sedimentary layer, what you'll find is all of the radiometric isotopes in there have degraded, indicating the same amount of time has elapsed.
Well, that's the assumption, yes. And now, I don't know in this particular example. I don't know. Not
okay,
this particular. I would look it up and come back. That's what I would do.
It's just that I'm not going to put the argument in your mouth, but just as a point of interest, a Jehovah's Witness once told me it was because of the flood, and I just thought that would be a great way of solving the Earth's energy problems if we could quickly turn uranium into lead and make it harmless just by dipping it in the sea or something. But anyway, I would actually want to ask Samuel a question, because I've known Rolf for many years and we've talked a lot. So it's not that I'm sick of you, Rolf, but I'd like to chat with your son.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, Samuel, earlier you were talking about basically the rules of answering prayers.
Yeah.
Now, as far as I could understand, correct me if I'm wrong, you were saying that God answers all prayers as long as they meet a specific criteria. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, he says that what we pray, I mean, the first thing is he's talking to Christians, those who know him. So that might also be an important point. And then he says that whatever you pray in my name, you will be given.
Well, that's good, because I was hoping that Christians might be an important factor. One of the other points you said is only if it's a selfless prayer. So, we're not talking about I'd like a new aeroplane. We're talking about selfless things. So you may pray for somebody else, for example. So
did I say something about that? I don't know. I mean,
I think it was because when someone said, "Can I pray for a nice new car?" and that was DPR because he's materialistic. But I mean, it might not be. You can't pray for selfish things, So basically, if you're praying for something selfless, it's not a self-motivation.
Yeah, it depends. It might not be according to God's nature to give you too much wealth, because it might be harmful to you.
Not wealth. I'm just saying if it's a selfless thing. I mean, wealth.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be a selfless thing. I've been praying for personal, quite unimportant things seen on a global scale, and I've been surprised.
If you're asking for selfish things, materialistic, then it's probably a no. And the other thing.
No, I've been surprised when I have these unimportant prayers being answered time after time. Not maybe in the time frame I was expecting first, but time after time I've seen them answered, and I've been surprised.
That was the other thing as well, as you said, there was a time frame. You also mentioned a time frame, so it could happen like years in advance or whatever. Now,
I've seen.
There are scenarios though where the time range is limited. For example, a pregnant lady who's undergoing a possible miscarriage, she does have a time limit. She has until the end of her gestation period. So there is a time limit there. So this prayer can't be answered in 3 years' time. It may only be answered within the next few weeks. Now, in the case where a believing Christian woman prays to God for the selfless prayer of God taking her life instead of her baby's life, or just saving a baby's life, but ultimately the ultimate self-sacrifice, selflessness of saying, please spare my baby, take me. Do you think that that fits the criteria of God will answer prayers that are asked in his name?
I mean, you cannot say that you know for sure what is the best for all. I mean, what is according to his name?
Often not only his name, but his plan.
Your experience, Rolf, come on.
Well, hang on, Rolf. Whoa, 1 second. 1 second. You just said there, Rolf, not only in his name, but also according to his plan. So, if your prayer is not in accordance with God's plan, then it ain't going to happen. How does that make it prayer?
Oh, but perhaps he has... Well, look, I had a very... At least, this is a personal example.
One occasion, please, Rolf, will you answer the question?
No, hang on a minute, because we're gonna end up going back to Rolf. And, you know, Samuel's not got much time in, and, you know, let's not just make him a spectator. Samuel, you have had prayers answered. So, you know, I was under the impression that basically there seems to be some kind of pattern to what you're doing that means that with some kind of frequency, you're getting it right. So,
yeah, sure.
Somehow you are doing the in his name bit correctly. Now, if this is true, then surely there are a lot of Christians that also are doing it correctly. They are praying in his name. Now, there are lots of people who are praying for the same thing, but not in his name. They'll pray for in the name of Allah or Vishnu or someone else.
Yeah,
therefore, is there a statistical correlation showing that Christians, on average, experience less miscarriages than other religions where both parties have prayed for the saving of their child? Is there any statistical evidence to show that God does answer the prayers of Christians who are probabilistically more likely to be praying correctly than non-Christians?
I'm not sure if I would doubt if there is any statistics done on that, because of, I mean, it's generally hard to make statistics on those kinds of things. And I would also, personally, I don't use this as my personal prayers being answered as evidence for others.
But would you say that that is a way of testing the hypothesis that there is a God that will answer your prayers if you ask correctly in his name? There is a difference. You can easily measure objectively people who are praying to a different God for the same thing and people who are praying in the way that you've prayed to at least to the same God. There should be a statistical difference in how many of the prayers are answered. Would you agree with that statement?
I think the statistics is in favor of the Christians, yes, but okay. I think it's very hard. So I think it's very hard to prove that. So I don't.
No, that's fine. Being hard to probe is fine. What we've done is we've come up with the hypothesis that this God exists and under these conditions he will grant certain things. And what we can do is we can build that into a theory by testing it. We've now made a prediction based on your model that
I would suggest you some other things for as.
Well, whatever it is, as long as it's the same thing, I think, you know, selflessly praying for the saviour of your child that may miscarry is a very good thing to pray for. But what we've now got is a testable hypothesis. What we do, if we get different groups of people doing the exact same thing, we should see a statistical difference in one of those groups. And if we do see that statistical difference, then that will strengthen our belief that our hypothesis was correct. But if we see no statistical difference whatsoever, it will show that our hypothesis was incorrect.
I haven't seen in the Bible anything that tells that personal prayers and answering personal prayers should be used as evidence for God's existence.
I haven't seen anywhere that says it shouldn't be used as evidence. I'm just saying that you've made the claim that God will answer prayers in his name under certain circumstances, and that Christians are more likely to meet that criteria simply because they're praying to the correct God, whereas others are praying to an incorrect God.
So you've been asking me and dragging the question out of me. So
yeah, I'm trying to drag it out of you because you've said
I'm not using it as evidence.
Well, perhaps Samuel, I can put it in very short form. Do you have any evidence at all that prayer works?
For me personally, I have, yes. I mean, it's enough evidence for me, but it's kind of hard to.
Right. Apart from you personally, do you have any objective, empirical evidence that prayer works?
I have empirical evidence.
You do?
That is enough for myself.
What is it?
Because I know what I thought before I prayed. I saw what happened, but I don't use this as evidence for new people.
No, I wouldn't accept it as evidence either, because I hear people who say that they've been abducted by aliens. I don't tend to believe them. So a subjective opinion is not particularly persuasive to me. Do you have any objective, empirical evidence that prayer works?
Yeah, but
it's yes or no, for goodness sake.
Yeah, but you're kind of having the question between the lines.
It's a straightforward question, Samuel. You understand the question. Will you answer it? Yes or no?
Sometimes there isn't even a valid question. What do you prove with this? You must prove. If you prove God, well, what claim did he make?
It's not about proving. What it is, it's about testable models are far more valuable than models. Models that predict are far more valuable than models that don't predict. Yeah. Right?
But I don't use them.
If your model says, I don't know what will happen.
But that's not how you prove if you have a mom or dad.
Worthless.
You see?
However, if your model says that more Christian babies should be spared from miscarriage than non-Christian babies because they meet the criteria of praying to the correct God, we should be able to not necessarily go into the future with the test, but retrospectively.
How does that relate to abortion?
Pause everyone, because we're running a bit short of time. I want to cut to the chase. Rolf, let me pick you up to your point.
Can we retrospectively show that is the case?
Rash, please. I want to speed things up because we've got a few more callers to get through, and I know what the time is. Rolf, you just said in sort of response to rationalise this problem, that is not the way that you go around testing who your parents are. Yeah, but there are very simple scientific tests that you can use to determine who your parents are. And I can assure you they are far more accurate in their results than praying to God to give you direction and instruction as to who your parents are.
Well, I would start from God's own explicit claims about relevant subjects to test whether he exists or not. Now, prayer isn't among them, because it isn't.
What are among them? Tell us what the tests are so we can try and carry them out.
Well, I gave you one example where one needed. Look, it's not only about God's nature and how he is. He needed to know if he was mad or if he had a calling from God. Okay, he tested. That was
said, Rolf. Okay. I don't know whether you're aware of what you just said. You just said that there were ways in which we could test for God. What are they?
I gave you an example, but you need to have a relevant example also. You can't just make it up. What do you prove with your own example?
The Bible talks about what happened in history and what is happening right now, and you can check that.
Let's take the next
evolution issue. That's a good one.
Are you with us?
Yes, I am.
How can we help?
Good. I'm sending. Great. Are you familiar with Jerusalem Jerusalem syndrome?
I'm not. Some of the panel may be, but I suspect
in the case of
members of the audience.
In the case of Jerusalem syndrome,
what it is for us.
What happens is people go to the Holy Land and they start seeing visions. In many cases, they start thinking they're either Christ or the Antichrist, second coming, etc. Many of these people have grand religious experiences due to these kind of delusions and do write texts based upon them. What is the difference, would you say, between these texts written by people that went to the Holy Land and had these visions, these delusions, these psychiatric breaks, they snap? and they go around believing that they've been sent by God or that they're Jesus or the Antichrist or whatever and write books all about their experiences. What is the difference between that and books of the Old Testament? And what test can you provide that shows a difference between the two?
Okay, pause there very briefly.
Can I answer?
There are a couple of things. Wait, please. There are a couple of things. Firstly, I am acutely aware that the 2 hours is up in a couple of minutes' time. Are both you, Rolf, and Samuel prepared to overrun by a few moments? That's the first question. The second question to 13 Heathens, was your question directed at anyone in particular?
Specifically the theists in the audience.
Yeah.
Because I'm curious as to what their test is to determine what the difference between
I
think we very well may have had the same syndrome back then.
Yeah, as I say, normally it always happens at the end of the show. Everyone wants to call in. Samuel and Rolf, are you happy to stay with us for another 10, 15 minutes or so?
Okay for me.
Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Which one of you wants to take that question first?
I would like to take that question.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, the Bible gives criteria. If the thing forespoken happens, then you know he's a prophet. Otherwise, he's not. Okay. Another example. I had a friend. He came from USA to Sweden. It's quite a trip. Telling me things. He had been to Jerusalem. He spoke about the two harvests in the area. Blah blah blah. Of this amazing wheat which grew so fast because they prayed. And I happen to know that it was the so-called false wheat. I have the name of it. It looks exactly like true wheat. It grows much faster, but it's poison. You can't eat that. And that poor man, he was so believing, so full of faith. I didn't have the heart to tell my friend, he was my friend, that he's deluded by his own delusion. So you have a point. That's my answer. Test things, yes.
Concordance.
It's the skeptical process. And on this
Can you
panel,
put your mic a bit
there are
closer
people
to you because you're quiet again.
The skeptical process is to subject every claim on the basis of its outlandishness, its outrageousness, to relative scrutiny. If your claim is that you are the Messiah, that you among all humans are the most important one to have ever lived, or that God is speaking into your head and you hear a voice in your head telling you to do things, it is part of normal human psychology that you subject that voice to scrutiny. It is people who are unable to apply a certain amount.
That's according to the Bible. You agree with
well, it's
Jesus,
a good
really.
thing that the Bible is there to tell us about the skeptical method.
Test
I think,
all
Rolf,
things.
that you should apply the skeptical method back to the Bible.
Yeah.
I think
You
that would
need
be a
2
great
or
thing.
3 witnesses in each thing. Test all things. Keep only that which is good. Now it didn't spell out the method, but yes, you're right. You're right.
Rolf,
Test the spirits even. Yes.
But how can we verify that Jesus was not the
one
first
second,
person to suffer
one at a
from
time, please,
Jerusalem?
gentlemen. One at a time, please, gentlemen. 13, I will come back to you very shortly. Let's Concordance come back first, and then I'll come to you.
No, I want to go to 13. He
oh,
had
I apologize. We'll go straight to you then.
Both of you.
The question, the follow-up was, you saying that you acknowledging your friend as being delusional. During the time of Jesus, there were hundreds of people going around claiming to be prophets, including Jesus. How can we state that Jesus was not one of the first people that suffered Jerusalem syndrome? And then those books are written based on that.
Yeah, well, Paul has a take on that. He says, we are the most pitiful among humans if he did not rise. Yes, so you're right. You're on speaking terms with the Apostle Paul.
Paul is the author, probably one of the earliest writers of any New Testament passages, who never actually met Jesus at all.
Well, according to himself, he met him, but not physically, in the usual way, if we say. Okay.
Yeah.
In a Gnostic sense.
Maybe he had Jerusalem syndrome by proxy then.
Well, if it was the truth, it doesn't really matter what kind of syndrome it was.
If it was the truth.
But he was aware of the problem. Yes, he was.
But I think it's relevant for Rolf to answer the question, on what basis do you reject the prophecy of David Koresh? Right? David Koresh, the crazy guy in Waco who claimed he was the Messiah, and it all ended in fire, which he predicted. or all of the people who find 9/11 conspiracies, who claim there was a prophecy and then that demonstrates that, Nostradamus, any of those types of claims, how do you apply the skeptical method to them?
Well, don't believe it until you have reason to believe it. But I have examples where I have had reason. Look, my father predicted the fall of Russia. Everyone laughed at him. They thought he was a nutcase. Our Christian friends too. And at some point I doubted his mental health too, to be honest. And it happened. He had spelled it out.
It was Russia still exists, Rolf.
Well, Soviet Union, sorry. Yeah. Don't mark the words here, the Soviet Union. And he said more things, of course, which happened. Let's not go into that. But you need to test it, of course.
They always remember the hits, right? One prophet is particularly popular. Everyone remembers these things. And, of course, they're being written after the fact.
Yes,
it's all this post hoc.
Let's make this short. I have made predictions that did not be fulfilled. I'm not a prophet. It's as simple as that, okay? You're right. What I'm saying is, you're right. If it doesn't happen, it's fake. It's not a prophet. At least not a prophet from God.
Okay, given the time,
it's very simple.
13, was there anything that you wanted to come back on? Because I've got two more that I'm going to try and squeeze in as quickly as possible.
Bring them on in, but
okay, thank you very much indeed
Samuel
for the
has
call.
a
I'm sorry
comment
I
on
had to
that
cut
one
you
as well.
short. It's not out of discourtesy, it's just about fitting in to people who, as I say, always right at the end of the show. Let's get them on as quickly as possible. And as you're coming on, I'll wait because I see the call hasn't connected yet. Can I just tell you in advance we're going to take this very briefly, and I apologise for that. So please cut to the chase.
Yeah, my question is going to be quick. I would just like to ask, who is the wife of Cain and who is the wife of Cain's children?
Sisters.
Does not explain who the wives are.
We haven't really got time for Oliver Poe. We haven't got time for an Oliver Poe.
Well, the question's there. Whether it's Oliver Poe or not, it doesn't matter. The question's there. Who was Cain's wife?
His sister. His biological sister. First hand, same father, same mother. Very simple. When was it a problem? Well, the decay of the genome. At some point in time, Moses has the message to the people. It's not allowed to marry close relatives. Before that, it was no problem. So
I'm terribly
there's
sorry.
your answer.
Again, you make that claim. Where does it say that? Give me chapter and verse and I'll read it out for the audience.
Moses, it put it on a timeline. Moses introduces the problem of marry a close relative. Before in time, it was no problem. Abraham was before Moses. He was married to his sister. Okay, half-sister, but effectively his sister. His true sister.
If I look in the book of Moses, I'll find it.
Yes, Abraham was married to Sarah, a beautiful woman. It was his sister.
Okay, there we go. There was your
sister.
answer. I'm sorry we had to say, that we cut you off so short. Anyway, we've got our next caller who will be, unfortunately for us, the last caller of the evening. It is Negation of P. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, DPR, for squeezing me in here. I'll get right to it because I know we're way behind. This is for anybody, and I think Concordance can probably address this as well, but I definitely would like to hear the theist point of view. Does the soul exist independent of the body/brain? And if so, can you explain why we see a change in personality under certain brain trauma? As we saw probably most famously, or at least the first case of this was Phineas Gage. Furthermore, since we understand this about the brain, we can manipulate the brain through surgery and through chemicals. Therefore, it would seem from everything we know that the soul or the personality is contingent on the brain. It doesn't exist outside of the health of the brain or the well-being of the body.
Okay, before anyone answers, can I just check and specify perhaps? There is nothing in the Bible about the soul, so this is going to be a matter of belief, I presume, for the theists. Rolf, you're always keen to go first.
New Testament is only about the soul, or look at the source word, psyche, That's the only word used. There is no mind, no brain, no.
Yeah,
so it's only psyche. Okay, this psyche we override, we overrule, we violate the brain and the impulses all the time. When I do not come and hug you all, I try to refrain from. Okay, I decide to not do everything that I feel. Sometimes I want to hit someone, and I just don't do it. What is it? Now, you can put something into your head and, just move around, and you cannot use your you call it psyche or what is your personality as usual anymore. Yes, that's true, but that doesn't do away with the strange fact that there is a psyche that is not the brain itself.
Okay, I apologize, Rolf. I assume that I made the wrong assumption. Tell me a little bit more about the soul then. Is it like God in this immaterial way? What form does it take? And again, I have to ask, how do you actually know it exists if it is immaterial and doesn't?
And we're looking for empirical evidence here, Rolf. Something like how many electron volts, and what does it weigh, and what space does it occupy? Is it mass, matter, or energy? What fundamental forces?
I'm very used to testing things, and when I test the wrong way, the wrong things, I don't spot the problem. Okay, so be careful. You're into the deepest pit we can go into.
I fully accept that, Rolf. Again, answer me this: what is the correct way to test it? Have you used that correct way, and what results have you found?
I can tell you one thing. I have seen so many bad and black things. I mentioned earlier here, and I've been put into such stress because of the pedophile scandal that I could not have imagined. I have had all the reasons to ask all the questions about the psyche.
What questions have you asked? What is the appropriate way of measuring it? And
how
what results have you had?
Healthy myself? Being, pushed by such black darkness, such evilness, which I have met.
So, we again, similarly to one of the questions that Samuel answered before, we are relying on your subjective opinion and experience, which, as I say, to me, firstly, does not meet the criteria of objectivity or empirical evidence, nor should I have any serious, attach any serious weight to it, because I've been told that people have been abducted by aliens and taken up to a spacecraft and probed and then put back, and they've forgotten all about it and so on. I find those stories incredible.
Me too.
Inscrutable, as I bet you do as well. So personal experience, I'm sorry, is not impressive to me. You said I know what test to apply. Have you got any objective empirical evidence to support the fact that the soul exists?
That the soul exists?
That was the question.
Okay. I haven't thought out any test for that. No, I haven't.
But you make the assumption that everything we know must be empirically tested. Do you test everything empirically that you hear from your friend?
No, and I've told you why. I've given you examples.
If my friend told me that they were...
test whether gravity is still at the same constant, I take that as a assumption. I think.
Yeah, and
it depends on the nature of the claim.
Here to write. So that is a valid assumption. But when someone makes a claim that I do not consider to be valid, then I want evidence for it.
Yeah,
but Samuel, I tell you what. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I tell you what. Let's go back to the point that I asked some moments ago. Okay, how do I know that you got it right in belief in the God of the Bible, and a Muslim has not got it right when they believe in the God of the Quran, Allah? Right? You have not ever been able to give me any evidence of that. You are, in my view, making a bold assumption which you cannot justify. Samuel, let Samuel address that point.
If you see that the Bible tells things about reality that you see constantly being true, then at some point you start to assume
like the rabbit chewing
it's like the gravity.
Exactly.
I just after 51 years, you trust it. Your faith grows according to the Bible. It grows according to experience.
Hallelujah! At least you said it's faith, not evidence.
It's faith. You can't have faith without evidence.
But do you accept that neither of you? Please let me ask you this serious question: do you accept that in the last 2 hours, neither of you have actually provided any empirical evidence to support the idea that your God actually exists, save for your own personal testimony?
Oh, well, we have discussed many things, and we need to keep arguing. I think we have provided good reasons to test the case. But
you have for evidence.
You have to test evidence. You can't get away.
Have you provided
you asked for empirical evidence, and you would have to try it out. That's the biblical take on it. Come and follow me. Try it. And he's not suggesting anything dangerous.
Back to negation of P.
Yeah, guys. Again, the question was fairly straightforward. The empirical evidence that we do possess shows that through chemicals or physical manipulation of the brain, of the gray matter of the brain, we can elicit a personality change. Yes. I would assume that if my soul is independent of my brain, we should not see that, and that's what I'm asking you to explain.
Yeah. You put an equal sign between the personality and the soul here, or?
I'm assuming, is there a difference between the two?
I don't know if you complicate it now, but you have the same exact situation when you get struck by anger. I mean, now you have a chemical attack on your personality. Who is in charge now?
Why should it
chemistry
be a who?
Or that which you think is you?
When you say who is in control, why do you think it is a who? You're presupposing an answer there.
No. But you have one who, and then you have chemistry. Okay, well, the adrenaline is pumping. I feel a threat. I feel I need to attack, and then I might refrain from. Why? I'm not slave under chemistry. I'm responsible. I go into jail if I let chemistry control my life. That's the answer. Now, if someone injects chemicals into my body and I do things, well, our justice system would not hold me so guilty, but they would say, hey, don't take those substances. If it was forced upon me, I'm free, entirely free, okay?
Let's simplify things a little, okay? I can stick electrodes in your brain. Now, not me personally. I'm not the kind of person to do this, but I could stick electrodes in your brain and you would smell lilacs. And I could stick electrodes in your brain and make your left eyelid twitch.
Yeah.
And if I had enough electrical control, I could manipulate your body in any way that I wanted to, including your sense of self. I could make you not recognize your own face in a mirror. If you heard the example of Phineas Gage, this is a man who had a railroad spike. Rolf, please do not interrupt me. Rolf, Phineas Gage was a man who had a railroad spike run through his head. When the railroad spike was, I believe, removed and surgically fixed, his personality afterwards was never the same. He was a completely different person, not just in personality, but in his perception of things. There are people with split brain syndromes where the two sides essentially become two personalities. The question I think that Nation of P is asking is, how can all of these, what is fundamentally what I think of myself as me, as I, when I look in a mirror, I recognize myself, not the physical act of seeing a face, but relating to the fact that I'm the person behind those eyes. We are talking about fundamentally manipulating what it is that when we say Rolf. All right? We're saying if those things are subject to physical constraints, physical laws, physical limitations, then there's clearly not something beyond the physical that entails recognizing yourself in a mirror. Do you understand that basic distinction?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I do. And I gave example how to override them. You are never No.
You can't. You can't. If I have the electrodes in your brain, there is nothing for you to override. There is no
limit.
you. Rolf, there is no you to override the electrodes. You are the pattern of electrical activities going through your brain. Now, that is not a simplistic thing, because the electrical activity is the physical that gives rise to properties about you. What we've come to know as Rolf is based on the behaviors of those electrical signals, the states of matter that are so arranged. So we're not talking about overriding something. I'm talking about basic physical control of how you think. Is something that we are capable of today.
Rolf, can I pause you there before you comment? Can I just make this observation? We're now 18 minutes over time. I'm going to wrap it up in the next 5 minutes. I don't want to cut you off, Rolf. I will let you very briefly address that issue, and then I'm going to go through everyone on the panel for their final words and bring things to a close, hopefully within the next 5 minutes. Bear that in mind, Rolf, as you seek to briefly address Concordance's point.
Yes. I want to repeat my point here that within certain limits, every day I override my instincts, chemical moods, everything, and I am to be in control. I mentioned Cain here earlier. He had killed his brother. God says, no, I'm going to protect you. Stay in your calling. Be in control. Nothing else controls you. Not anger, not sin, not any other man. Okay, that's a wonderful message. That's the Creator's message to a sinful man. Okay? The guilt is another problem. I take my closing statement here. That's the setting. We're created for a reason and a high calling to develop the world and till the ground, have dominion. See, we are to have dominion also over sin or bad thoughts or things. To some extent, you cannot do anything about the chemicals. You put some chemicals, I fall asleep or I go crazy, I go haywire, I become someone else or two, or yes, but what's the problem? We are limited. My body, you can change my body and my body is limited, okay? This is the physical implementation that it comes with a physical implementation, okay? That doesn't exclude anything about the psyche. But psyche is a strange thing. Now, this was the starting. The Creator, He created us for a purpose. That purpose failed. Let's agree upon that. There was a fall. He had a solution because it popped up a problem. And then He's going to finalize His plan. And we live in His plan. I think that you also are in His plan. Because you asked questions that people ask out there. We had the opportunity to discuss them. We might not have done our best here, but given another chance, we might be able to answer better.
Okay.
And if you want to repeat any question...
I'm sorry, Rolf.
Thank you.
I said we had 5 minutes to close it, and you've taken up 3 minutes of those 5.
Okay, sorry.
Now, Rolf, and also to Samuel as well, if there are any links that you would like to be included in the description of these videos when they're posted on YouTube, please send me a message and I will include them. I think that's fair. Negation, I'm sorry, given the time, I am going to have to remove you. I was going to come to you for the last words, but going to have to leave you out, I'm afraid. Let's take it in order then. Well, I think, Rolf, you kind of had your last words. We'll go Rationalizer, Samuel, and then Concordance for final comments before we wrap everything up. Rationalizer.
I think going with Concordance's example
Mike,
of chemicals.
Be a bit louder.
Can you hear me?
That's better.
No.
Going with Concordance's example of chemical stimulation of the brain, the Rolf now would disagree to have sex with a specific person. However, if I sneak some GHB date rape drug into his drink, the Rolf under the influence of that drug would quite happily have sex with someone he wouldn't normally have sex with. Not only that, but would be a very willing participant and possibly even take control of the sexual act while he was under the influence.
On that bombshell, I'm going to remove you. I didn't expect you to introduce an entirely new topic. Do not seek to address that. It's too late. Samuel, you've been very quiet, and I appreciate your attendance on the show, and I also appreciate your patience. I suspect growing up in a family of 7 siblings or 6 siblings and a father, you probably never got a word in edgeways, but you have your opportunity now.
Yeah, well, in this actual topic, I don't have much to add, actually.
Well, I was just hoping that you might say thank you for being on the show and whatever, but I appreciate your sentiment.
Thank you for being on the show. Certainly.
There we go.
That's the last
Concordance, any final points before I wrap it up?
Yeah, you know, I never had a chance to blurt this out, but Rationalizer brought up this topic of intercessory prayer. And there have been a number of clinical trials on the medical efficacy of intercessory prayer in recovery. And I think 4 out of the 5 studies I've read, vast majority of them, show that there is no statistical effect whatsoever, except when you tell the patient that they're being prayed for. And interestingly, when you tell them that they're being prayed for, would you think that they would maybe get better or have fewer complications? The exact opposite is true, that people who know that people are praying for them, because of the additional stress of knowing that people are watching them, that they're being observed, that people are talking about them behind their back, they actually get much worse. And it's a statistically significant effect. In fact, if you wanted to go to a hospital and tell people, stop praying for these sick people or they'll never get better, I think that would be a good thing.
On that bombshell, may I thank very much both Rolf Lampa and his son Samuel. It's been an interesting, if not at times frustrating, exchange, but I hope that people have enjoyed it. And just to remind people that it will be posted on YouTube, hopefully within 48 hours. I will send you links, and as I say to both Rolf and Samuel, if you would like any links in particular included in the description of those videos, it's about almost 2.5 hours. I normally split it up into 2, maybe 3 videos. Any links to anything that you referred to that you think people would be interested in looking at, I will certainly include them, but try and get them to me fairly quickly because, as I say, normally within about 48 hours this will be up. Also, can I remind people that, well, not remind people, for the first time say that we've actually got a functioning iTunes account, thanks to the Rationalizer. So links to that will be included in the video. You can always check out on future shows and check up on previous shows by going to our website, www.magicsandwichshow.com. Is there anything I missed out, apart from thanking Ben, who has stood in admirably for Tony this evening? So rather than thanking Tony, I'm going to give a big thank you to Ben, who's brought the show to you in all its glory. And I think on that note, is there anything else? I'm not going to ask you, Rolf, because you'll be here for another 10 minutes. Apart from Rolf, is there anything else that I've missed out? I think not.
That
bombshell, thank you very much indeed, Ben. No, stop, Rolf. You're done. You're done.